Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I have Brittany Ford from Mountain Girl Makes It today. Her and I have actively tried to connect for a long time now, including physically at a conference, like walking in circles, trying to meet each other. And so I am so excited to have her on today and finally be able to chat. So thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's nice to be here. Yeah, I remember the day when we were just walking in circles trying to find each other, and I was like, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think I was literally at your booth, and my daughter's like, there's a gal here looking for you.
It was like we were just completely like, in orbit of each other. We were just like,
Right. And then, once things like settle down, then we're like busy at our booths. So oh goodness. The life of these travels. So I've really enjoyed like watching what you do on social media with everything that you're learning and trying. And I just thought it'd be like such a great conversation to get people excited about some of the crafts and stuff like that. So I would tell us a little bit about your homestead and what you do.
well, my homestead is in the making. It is not a completed homestead by any means. We bought this house four
Are
years
we
ago.
ever done?
I feel like we have like levels of like our projects. I have no idea. It's like a progress forever, but mine is definitely from, I wouldn't say ground up because we bought a house, but we're renovating it. So we ripped everything out and then
Oh,
we're
wow.
together again. And then, we're collecting all these animals. It's my fault. And then we need to build the structures for the animals and then, take care of,
My husband came home with chickens the other day, so.
I came home with ducks and we have no duck pen. So now my husband's like fixing it up as fast as he can and building one on top of all the other projects we have. So we are, I wouldn't say in over our heads, but we are pretty swimming. We're swimming in projects right now. And with that, we are raising young kids, taking care of animals. My husband works full time.
Oh, wow.
I work very part time as a house cleaner. And then on top of that, I do the social media. I run my crochet business. I take care of all the animals. And I'm kind of in the making of building a bigger business for myself, which is um, raising rabbits. And I'll be selling their fur for fiber artists to blend wool with and make soft yarn.
Oh,
I
good for you.
Yeah, it's nice and beautiful fur, and
Yeah.
it's something that blends really well with wool and gives it a very luxurious feel. And I've always been too afraid to sell it because I was like, well, I don't know if it's good enough. But so I always spun it myself, and I'm like, you know what, it's good enough. I've been spinning this for a really long time, and I take care of my rabbits, and so I'm kind of thinking,
My podcast that came out this morning was actually all about imposter syndrome and are you good enough? So maybe you should go listen to it.
are you, I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I'm like, it's time to just do it, because I had that same exact instance many years ago when I started crocheting. I was practicing making everything and giving it away to friends, and then one day I said, maybe this is good enough to start selling. So I made a whole bunch of stuff and I booked my first craft show, and I was like, I don't know, my stuff's not that great, and I sold out.
Oh,
And I
that's awesome.
booth there because I didn't know how to work craft shows. I didn't have an awning. My table was just a mess, but it was empty by the end of the day. And I was like, well, you know what? This is pretty good. so then I
I
so
think
I
we all start somewhere. So
so I have to just jump into it and see what happens and learn from any mistakes or learn from any encounters that I have, and I just go from there. But yeah, we're building our homestead on top of working and our other hopes and dreams. And um mostly what I specialize in around here is the garden, the canning, crochet, my crochet business on Etsy. I write crochet patterns, and I sell finished dolls. And then I
Oh.
teach, I do demonstrations now for spinning wool on a spinning wheel. I'll be at the Gettysburg Homestead Expo I think it's in July. I was invited by one of the founders or board members of it. I don't know
Hmm.
what it would be, but she wanted me to come and do some demonstrations. So I'll be bringing my wool carders. I think I'll be bringing a rabbit too with me. So
Oh,
people,
always. That
yes,
draws people in.
and then I'll, be spinning on my wheel, and I'll be showing people, how it works and how you can get the wool ready to go and all sorts of stuff like that.
That's awesome. So what kind of animals do you have right now?
Right now, we have various breeds of ducks. I think it's Indian runner ducks, Muscovies, one Peking duck, and yeah, I think that's about. Oh, and khaki Campbell ducks, and then chickens and my Angora rabbits. But the end goal for us in our back pasture is to have sheep for
Nice.
yes,
For
and
yeah.
yeah, for my hobby. But I
I
also
mean, if you're making money off of it, it's not just a hobby. So,
I have that horrible problem. Like if it's a hobby, I want to make money from it. So it
you know
really
what? My business coach recently told me some people have hobbies and some people have businesses, and we're just wired that way.
yeah, I don't know why I'm that way, but it's like, well, if I want to be able to do this, I gotta like fund this thing. So
I
that's just
just
how
get excited, like, I'm gonna do this next, and then I'm gonna do this next, and it just snowballs. And my husband's like, you exhaust me. And then the other day, like, I was sitting there, like, I'm listening to this book right now about it's a business book, and I'm like, it has ruined my life. And he was like, what do you mean it's ruined your life? And he's like, stop reading it then. And I was like, no, no, no. Like, what I'm saying is, like, I have a track that I'm following for the next like 6 months or so with my business. And this is giving me so many ideas. Like, my brain is just exploding. And like, I just can't wait for like the next, like to be done with my other stuff so I can start with this guy, says I should implement. He's like, well, what is he talking about? So I start telling him everything, and he's like, okay, you're gonna hate me. I was like, why? He's all, I have a business idea. So now we're like talking all the time about this new business idea that we have. And he's usually like the anti, well, I call it like entrepreneurial ADHD. And he's like, like, not me.
it's just we want to do so much, and it's just we only have so much time. I wish we had more time to be able to do that. It's
Well, when
just
you find ways to make money off of it and you find ways to integrate the stuff together, then
that's kind of how I'm doing. I'm multitasking. I'm trying to get like, one thing done while also accomplishing this at the same time. So then I can, not have to do so many things one at a time. So it's like a time saver.
exactly.
Or
Even
is
though you created it, it's still like, it's like, what's that new thing that's been going around, like woman math? Like, if you
oh
buy
yeah,
it on sale, if you buy something for $500 on sale, you actually saved $500, or it was free or something.
yeah.
It's the same way with time management. If you create lots of extra projects for yourself, but then you find a way to save time with those, it's like free time.
Like, yeah. My husband would disagree with me though. He's like, I think he's overwhelmed, but he's bored about it.
Sorry. I think my husband's the same way. He's not like we kind of say like I have the entrepreneurial mindset and then he has like the worker mindset, and he's like, yeah, no, too much for me. He's building like 3 chicken tractors right now. So
Yeah, we're doing that same exact thing. But hopefully within a few years, I feel like once the house renovations are done, we're nearly complete. Once they're done, then it'll feel like less of a push on us. And then outside work will be, more enjoyable and less like, I gotta get it done,
that makes
stress.
sense. And then like my husband doesn't work, so
Yeah,
or
that's good.
he's a
More
disabled vet, so like he put in his time. He got blown up
yeah.
3 times in Iraq.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, he needs,
Yes.
his time, his rest and enjoyment.
Yeah. So he should enjoy making me a chicken tractor.
Yes, I'm sure
Oh.
boys like being outside and working with his hands and
Yeah,
not
no, he enjoys it, and he's on our volunteer fire department, and
good. Dealing with an employer, a boss, clock in here, be here now, like that's stressful.
gross. Yeah,
Yes.
I couldn't do it again. No way. My boss is mean enough. It's me.
I know he works like 40 to 60 hours a week sometimes. It depends on if he's on call. He's a boiler technician. So
Oh,
he's always
okay.
big industrial boilers to keep factories running, hospitals running, schools running. It's just it's one of
Oh,
those jobs
yeah.
he did.
Yeah, and that's an important one, so
There's not a lot of guys in the trades anymore.
there's
So
not.
very few. So he's working like three guys would be working, he's here.
Those are
He drives from, he would drive. Sometimes his commute could be like 3 hours one way, 3 hours back. So he's on the road a lot.
well, there's not a lot of people working in general right now, and usually by choice.
I don't know how this world is still turning.
I I mean, yeah, I mean, even just like when I'm traveling, like I go to get a burger on the road or something, and there's like one person working the whole place, and I'm like,
Yeah. I don't
how
know
is
how.
this even feasible?
I don't know. Something's going to have
It's
to give.
it'll implode on itself
Hmm.
eventually, and then the things that we are doing makes it where we'll be fine while everyone else is scrambling.
It's like a big domino effect, though. I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to everyone somewhere, though.
I hope someone somewhere wakes up before it gets too bad. But
It seems like scientists are creating artificial people to replace all the workers who aren't working. So that's going to be an issue.
that's special. I'm gonna stay here with the trees.
Me too.
Yeah. So I'm a little intrigued. You're talking about the Angora fur. So do you actually make Angora fur yarn, or is it actually blended in with wool?
Well, you can make 100% Angora yarn.
Hmm.
The issue with just having I do it. It's great for like mittens and socks.
Hmm.
But I sweater out of 100% Angora because it's drapey. See, if you ever like the science behind like wool, it's very bouncy, like sheep's
Hmm.
wool bring to it. So it kind of keeps like a tight knit. It makes that stretch. Angora, it
Okay.
doesn't stretch. It just kind of drapes down. And over time, it just looks saggy and it just doesn't
Oh.
shape as well. So when you blend Angora with sheep wool, you get that bounce and then you get that soft, luxurious Angora rabbit feel. Um, but with
That's tricky.
so it's one of those things where it's like you would assume the yarn would be just like sheep wool yarn, but it's not. It's like stiff. It's not bouncy. It's not. There's
Huh.
if you've ever held a staple of wool, you'll see like kinks in the fiber. And if you held a rabbit fur, you would see it's more straight. It's like
Yeah.
straighter staple. There's no kinks in it. It doesn't bounce. And keeping it 100% is fine if you're going to make things like mittens, socks, where it's not like always going to be draped over you or pulled too much, like a sweater.
Hmm.
I've seen beautiful shawls made with 100% Angora. Those
Oh
seem to be,
yeah. Or like a
but
scarf or something.
yeah, but they'll just be very drapey. And keeping it 100% gives it a very unique feature called a halo. So it's got this fuzzy, like, um, it's like this fuzzy outer surface, and they call it a halo, and it gives it this really unique look with 100% Angora wool, and it's
Hmm.
just something you only get with that, really, and it's beautiful. So it's you just have to pick how you want your wool to what your project will look like, and how you want it to feel, and how long you want it to, I guess, hold up. It would be something I would wear probably on good occasions or very, I don't know, it's warm, so cold occasions. It's very warm. Oh, I hold my rabbits in there just, you know, they will keep me they will keep me really warm in the wintertime. uh,
I'm laughing because my husband's allergic to rabbit,
oh,
but he loves rabbits. And so like every time we go somewhere that someone has a rabbit, he's like, "Oh, it's so cute," and then he's all like, weepy afterwards.
Another special feature about Angora is usually I do not dye my Angora wool or Angora fur. I use the terms interchangeably.
Hmm.
People prefer the natural color of whatever the rabbit will be. So there's so many different types of rabbit colors out there. There's like chocolate, then there's like the black, there's tort, there's like I've seen like chinchilla, I think. There's so many different
Yeah.
colors of the rabbits, and so people will collect the colors and then use those colors because they're so unique. And with sheep wool, a lot of people tend to dye it because it's, white or black, and
Yeah.
it's more easier to just, dye the sheep wool because you can get more of it and it's just white or black. With Angora rabbits, there's just so many different colors and they're unique to the rabbit, and it
I've
makes the
seen
yarn
some really beautiful ones.
yeah, it makes the yarn really unique and special. So
It's probably really expensive too, huh?
for the rabbits I've seen some prices on Angora fiber. It can be kind of expensive depending on the breed of rabbit because there's different types of Angora. There's English Angora, satin Angora, French Angora, giant Angora. There might be more, but those are the ones I'm familiar with.
Hmm.
Um, English, French, and I've never had a satin one, but I did have a giant, but he passed away a few years ago. He was a sweetie. But yeah,
And
those
so
are the
you just get their fur by just brushing them out, right?
brush them out. Some breeds will molt, which it's like shedding, like a dog.
Hmm.
So you kind of like pluck it and it gently comes out because it's not connected to the skin or it's just kind of there. So you just pull it and it comes out like shedding fur. Some breeds don't molt, so you can't just pluck it. You have to shave it down,
Mm.
and that's how you get it that way. I think
Okay.
usually I harvest every 3 months, but you groom pretty regularly because they can get matted, they can get mites. So you just have to brush them out now and then, make sure they don't have mats, clip their nails. I like to cut the fur around their face because it just gets so fluffy and it sometimes gives them eye infections. So I just
Oh
keep it
yeah.
because it'll just stick them in the eyes. I'm like, why are your eyes watery? And I'm like, oh, because you have hair in your eyes all day. So I usually keep their fur short on their face. Just it makes them feel happier.
I'm sure, yeah. So like how much fur are you getting from one? I don't even know. Like, is there a
I never quite measured. I'm gonna get a scale so I can measure how many ounces I get.
yeah.
When I shave or pluck the top coats, I can get a pretty big basket full of spinnable wool. Then I'll do some shaving, or I'll shave like the sides, and it might not be the most ideal. It might be shorter, might not be long staples to spin. So I'll use that for felting, and then any of like the trash, like where it's got mats or if there's a little bit of hay or too much stuff in it, I just put that out in the garden for compost. So all of it gets used somewhere.
Nice. So when
Yeah.
you're felting, can you explain what felting is? Like I've
Um, oh,
just
felt like
for
needle felting is when you take wool wool from sheep or Angora rabbits, I think Angora goats too, and you put it on a foam block and you just stab it with a particular felting needle. It's usually barbed, and you create a shape or a form out of that. You can needle felt like little dolls. You can needle felt bags. I've seen people needle felt cat houses. Um, you also do that with wet felting too. Wet felting is when you take the wool and you agitate it gently in soapy water and you get it to kind of clump together, because when you agitate wool, it clumps together and mats,
Mhm.
and a thin sheet of matted wool, and you can sew it and make it into things. So
Okay, that's
pretty
awesome. Like I've heard of it a little. I knew what felted,
it's really
like I've
fun.
seen felted things, but I didn't know like what the process was from like one
Yeah,
step two.
it's really fun actually. It's one of one of my secondary hobbies that when I have time, I make little things out of it.
I would
I've
love
made,
to sit and stab something hundreds of times.
yeah, and those needles, they're pretty fun. Sometimes you just use one needle, and then there's ones with like a whole bunch of them on. It depends on how much space you're covering. And it's actually, wet felting is fun for kids because no needles involved. You just get sheets, like cooking sheets, and just agitate the wool, and they just spend their time, getting it into a shape.
Huh.
You have this wool. My kids made felted soap. They took little wool samples and felted it and then wrapped their bar of soap in it. And they had this like
Oh,
little
that's
wash. Oh, yeah.
fun. I'm gonna have to try that. We buy a couple lambs every year to butcher for our farmstead. And I'll have to like last year we decided to not shear them before we butchered because it was winter time. But I was like, next year I want to shear them early so that I can have some wool just to whether I play with it or put it in my garden. I feel like it feels like a huge waste
Yeah.
when we send them to
For small scraps of wool, felting is perfect. It's a fun little craft.
yeah, that's awesome. Sorry, I was writing that down. So I'm like, I want to remember to do that. And if I don't write it down, it's gone.
It's fun for the kids. Sometimes I have given my kids the felting needle. You get the felting block and some wool, and you get cookie cutters, and you just
Uh-huh.
felt shape. And we've made magnets that way with little felted magnets.
Oh,
Guys,
fun.
things. Fiber arts is like my biggest joy here.
So I have I know a lot of people are interested in fiber arts. Like I even feel a little of a pull to it. Like I've watched you do your videos when you're spinning and I'm like, "Oh, I remember seeing a spinning wheel when I was like a little girl at like some sort of reenactment type thing and I just was like, "Oh, that looks like the most relaxing thing to do to just sit there and like spin wool and listen to the sounds of life or if my kids are around, put headphones in and just listen to a book and spin wool."
It is really fun.
But what I see a lot of is, right now we kind of have we're going through the modern homestead movement, the back to the land. And I see a lot of people being like, I want to learn these skills, but I want it to be practical. And like, even when I go to craft shows and stuff, a lot of times craft shows or different conferences, I'll go and you go down the line and, you stop at like a booth and they're like, yeah, these are all my crocheted dolls, and I'm like, I mean, little kids, they like a crocheted doll. But like, I would love to see more people start like, crocheted hat businesses and, things like that, or teaching how to do like an actual crocheted hat more. Because like I can crochet a hat, but nobody would wear it. But I'm also left-handed and nobody could teach me how to do it. So I taught myself one stitch and I do it. It looks like I'm doing it upside down because
Oh,
I'm left-handed. But I mean, I made my daughter a really cute beanie that like has the ponytail holder.
that's cute.
And she was only able to wear it for one season because I made it like just on the small side. And I've made my boys hats that they wear up to the barn and that type of thing. But I still feel like there's kind of, when we're going back to this sustainable movement, like it's easy for a lot of people to raise pigs. May not be easy for you to raise pigs. It's easy for you to knit hats, and and I mean, I'm just saying that as, I think that like we talk a lot about local food, but we don't talk enough about local crafts.
Right.
That there are ways that we can be sustainable on our farms or in our communities with the supplies that you need to be able to have hats and clothes and scarves and
Yeah.
things like that.
Well, when it
And
comes
I
with, it's very there's lots of practical ways to do it with knitting when you can make, clothing. um Crochet is also the same with like household items. Also, something that gets not overlooked but isn't talked about much is like weaving on smaller looms where you can make fabrics and sew them together and make towels, make hand towels. You can sew the fabrics together to make bags, all sorts of things like that with weaving. I've seen
yeah.
like a rigid heddle loom, just a small one, just to make small things with. I just haven't gotten around to getting that yet. But because I'm
I saw
always
this beautiful loom one time that it's small, like, or it's not that small. It's not like the full size, like where you have to, it's, I don't know, it's probably about a foot to 18 inches wide, and it's like a
yeah.
tabletop one. And I sat there and I watched this video for like 2 hours of this woman making an entire scarf on this loom. And I was just like, I'm in love. Like, I want it so bad. I have nowhere to put it, and I don't know how often I'd use it, but I need it in my life.
Yeah. I've been wanting to get one like that. I just haven't, with all the chaos going on, I haven't been able to sit down and start new projects like that. But I have taken weaving classes before, and it's really fun. Um, that's where I took I've also taken spinning classes. That's how I learned how to spin from a
Uh-huh.
classroom.
Oh,
So it's it's definitely a craft I think worth looking into. And if you practice on it and really enjoy it, I think it can be something that can be turned into like a sustainable craft where you can make things that are useful for life, tablecloths, hand towels, regular towels, anything like that in particular, to get away from any, if you're trying to get away from all the manufactured things in our lives.
right. And sometimes I look at it and I'm like, I'm kind of still somewhere in the middle. Like, I would much rather eat my homegrown pork, but I really don't mind buying a towel at Walmart.
Yeah.
But when
Sometimes
I look at,
time, at that point, because machines have made it so, saved us so much time from having to hand make everything. Sometimes it's like you got to spend your time where you need it.
Mhm. Oh, I absolutely agree. I just, I look at stuff like that and I go, like, I would like to be able to have that skill. For,
Yes.
for example, like I made apple cider vinegar last year. And my husband's like, so, like, I know we do a lot of stuff sustainably, but is this like a thing now? Are we always going to be making apple cider vinegar? And I was like, no. I just wanted to make sure that I could master the skill of making apple cider vinegar while I had access to the internet and everything else that I need. Because if things were to go down tomorrow, I would have a way to create apple cider vinegar that I could clean our home with. And he's like, okay, I'm on board for that. What else should we learn next? You know?
That when they asked me like, well, you can just do this at the store, you can just, it's easier if you just do it this way or just go buy it. I said, yeah, it is easier, and I'm not like saying it's bad for anyone who does, but for me, just having the knowledge to know how to do it is worth more than just, always, going and buying it somewhere else, or just
Oh,
just
yeah.
that's like the biggest perk, is just knowing how to do it, having the knowledge to do it. So I can say, I know how to do it, and I don't have to worry about,
Hmm.
going now or having to scramble to learn if I needed to. So,
Yeah. Well, and like I said, for me, I would like, we always raise a couple extra hogs. Sometimes I say a couple extra. We raise like 350 hogs a year, but I always make sure I have a couple extra each butcher around, that either I have a last minute customer or we want to put it in our freezer or whatever is going on. So I just have access to that little bit extra. Like, and we trade all the time. And I'm like, I would literally trade like a half a hog for, I don't know, two really nice handmade towels for each person in my family. I mean, that's
yeah,
$400. Like,
yeah, it's handmade stuff can be expensive, but it's worth it. And
mhm.
trade also helps offset that, because you have what they need, and then they have what you want. So it's a trade-off. It works because it's better
Mhm.
than always trading money and stuff, because you don't, you got, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I'm so
Yeah, well, I live in a community that like bartering is really big. You know, like our well pump went out and the guy came to fix the well pump and he's like, it's going to be X amount, but I'll take it off in meat. What do you have? And that's just how things work around here. Like, what do you have to offer first? And then I'll bill you for the rest or whatever. Like my husband did somebody's brakes for a half a gallon of local honey
nice.
because he does
Yeah,
mechanic work on the side. He keeps the neighbors' tractors running in trade for 20 tons of hay a year.
that's good.
And that's just kind of how we do it around here. But I'd love to see that happening more. But even like, like I look at how it is when I go visit back east. Now, honestly, there are so many people back east. Like it is overwhelming to me. And I'm not talking in the big cities, like even out in the country, there's just so many more people than there are, which we were talking about this before the call. In the West, everything is so vast. Like if I need to get out of town, I can be out of town and not see a person in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it is not like that in on
Well,
the
there's
East Coast.
many housing developments popping up and taking over farms, and it's just like really getting crowded out here.
But
It's
even like
just,
you were saying, taking like a weaving class or something,
yeah.
we just don't have a lot of those types of things because everybody is so stretched out. Like there's one place locally that does classes, and it would take me an hour and a half to drive there.
There's only one around here too. Apparently, people fly into this place because it's so.
Wow.
In fact, fiber arts stuff is far and few between. It took me a long time to actually find the school because I was
Hmm.
online searching up all these different places, and most of them were closed down. And then I finally found this one. Wow, okay, I can drive there. And it at the time I lived 45 minutes from it, and now I
Hmm.
live an hour and five or something from it. So I still have to drive all the way out to it,
Yeah.
like in a really beautiful place, but there's nothing else around here that's close. The
Like even
closest,
teaching any type of sustainability type classes. Like, I see online a lot, people are like teaching classes on how to butcher chickens. And I think there's only one other farm in all of North Idaho that does that. And I mean, we're getting ready to start offering them ourselves just because to like fulfill that
yeah,
emptiness.
it's one of those skill sets that most people don't think they need, but it is needed still. We have to teach younger generations, or even people our age who don't know, who
Yep.
want, like, if there's no one there to teach, it will disappear, and it will be
Hmm.
hard to really bring back that skill set and knowledge if it completely disappears.
Well, and I was even reading some of the history of like extension offices where they teach canning and that type of stuff. And those were put into place when like it was before the depression, but like, during some hard economic times. And they were like, okay, well, they actually had two different departments. One was to teach the men how to farm more sustainably, and the other department was to teach the women how to have a more sustainable home. But they actually, one of the readings I did is it actually failed a little because the women, if they could make the farms more sustainable, the women could work more on the farms, and they didn't want to learn all the skills to make the home more sustainable. But this was during a time when things were becoming more commercialized, and there was like a whole movement that I say they, commercial companies were selling more to rural people than they were to urban people. And that was their biggest like catalog sales and things like that.
Yeah, mailing things out. You can buy anything in the catalog back then. Those Sears catalogs too. I
Yeah,
can
and it was probably really exciting because before they only had like their general stores and everything else they made themselves, and suddenly they had this catalog that they could buy anything from. And
buy off that catalog. It would send
huh?
it all. You could buy houses from those catalogs.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
So suddenly women didn't have to be sustainable anymore and learn these skills and learn these crafts. And again, like I say we, but like kind of this homestead movement that we talk about all the time is okay, now 100 years later, we see where we messed up. How do we go back a few steps and fix that? So,
Yeah, there always has to be people who still know and are willing to pass on knowledge. It's just I can go back to my husband's job. He said that there are not a lot of young guys going into the boiler industry, and all the men who know all the stuff are now retiring and leaving, and no one's learning from them. So what's
mm-hmm.
going when no one can work on the boilers, and it's one of those silent jobs where boilers keep things running. If there's no
Yeah.
one there, boilers running, your factories aren't going to run, your hospitals aren't going to run, your schools aren't going to run, your hotels won't run because these boilers keep them going. So people
Yeah.
important some of these things that seem like too much hard work, too much labor, too much dirty job. It's important because it makes the world run. And
Right.
without there's got to be people out there willing to want to do it, and there aren't many people, and the men who know it, the people who know all these, skills are retiring and going off, and they're not, passing their knowledge down to someone else who can teach the next one. It's really
Right.
like you passing it down. Then when there's no one there to pass it down to, it just disappears.
I know I was actually just talking about this yesterday. It was on a totally different topic, but it was at a Christian meeting in my town, and we were talking about a group of people that we were trying to reach. And I said, I think where we're messing up is we're so focused on trying to reach this group of people. Why don't we try to reach the generation below this group of people
Mm-hmm.
so that they aren't as influenced by the other group, so that and I think that's where we're missing a lot of huge steps as a society is we're allowing teenagers like that weren't even a concept 100 years ago, allowing teenagers to just kind of flounder during 4 years. You just need to check these boxes and then pick a good career or, you know, and they aren't, um, we aren't like cultivating them as people. And I think, we're losing a lot of the trades because of that. We're losing a lot of integrity. We're losing a lot of like a huge lack of identity.
I Me and my husband, our kids, they do go to public school and a cute little elementary school down the street, but
Yeah.
we did career day, and I was really surprised. I was like, oh, they probably won't let me in because I'm, like I do all this canning, and I
Uh-huh.
said I teach people how to garden can. I do lots of demonstrations, and when I brought things from my garden, things I've canned, my canner, and Angora like fiber and stuff, these kids were super excited and they wanted to
Oh
learn
yeah.
more crafts and crochet. And I wasn't trying to stick to I was trying to let their brains, their minds kind of like go with what they want. Cause one girl's like, well, I crochet. And I was like, well, maybe you might be a clothing designer one day or make, crochet things because it's coming, in style. I see it in stores and mass manufactured crochet stuff. I was like, maybe you can make designs. And one kid was talking about maybe farming, and I was like, you could grow all this stuff. And like I would ask kids like what this was, my pressure canner, and kids didn't know what it was yet, but I taught them what pressure canner does, how it works, what the science behind canning your own food is, and they were all really excited. And my husband told me that all the kids were super excited about boilers and things like that, because I don't know if they're exposed to it very much in school
Yeah.
anymore. Oh,
They
so
aren't. You just check the boxes. And, yeah, we homeschool. We weren't always homeschoolers. We started about 8 years ago, which were our little kids. They've never been to public school. For our older kids, they were in junior high when we pulled them out. And but we teach at a co-op now, and my husband and I teach homestead science and survival and um a history course on like food and agriculture, that type of thing. Very hands-on. And we have families that come from like all over like 2 counties just to take our classes because they're like, we need our kids to learn this stuff. And
it's
and we even live in a rural area, but they're like, they need the science behind it. They need you know, the hands-on that not everybody can get, the problem solving, like all those things that like kids are just checking boxes at this point.
I feel like it's a big push. Well, I
And
wouldn't say
that's not just at the public school system. It's there's a lot of parents that just trust that the public school system is getting their kids all of the information that they need in life.
no. I would say school is supplemental, and parents are the biggest people who have to push the education. School is just there to kind of give you a guideline, and then you have, as a parent, have to make sure your kids are on track with math and reading and all that, and make sure that they're reading things that are appropriate and all that. Parents
Yeah, I've
are,
been seeing some stuff out of Maryland recently that I was like, "Oh my gosh."
yeah, it's a pretty close state, but luckily it's Pennsylvania and Maryland are kind of, we're not really the same.
I
So
spent a summer in Pennsylvania in high school and as an exchange program for 4-H. So, yeah, it's still a pretty different place once you get out of the big cities.
yeah, it's amazing how like big Pennsylvania is, and the cities are like far away from each other, and there's so much middle of
Right?
Pennsylvania.
So are you near Gettysburg?
Yes, yeah, I
Okay,
am.
I spent my summer in Somerset County.
I don't know where that
It's
is.
uh just west of Gettysburg.
Okay, I'm not. These counties and boroughs and townships are so confusing to me. So I'm like,
Um, where the plane crashed in 9/11?
okay, was that just outside of Gettysburg? I guess that would
And
be. That's
yeah,
about 45 minutes
yeah,
to an hour from here, I think.
yeah. So that's,
Yeah,
yeah, that's where it was.
where that is now. That's like towards. That's going west towards like Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
and then I just don't know the counties.
yeah. Well, I think
Area.
the town is Somerset, but I don't know. It's small.
Yeah, I've driven past it before, so well, there it is.
Yeah.
Actually been to it because I don't know if I can handle the sadness of it. But I've driven by it.
Yeah.
It's
It
too
was
much.
very near to one of the farms I spent the summer on, but it was before 9/11. Like we actually flew out of the Baltimore airport 1 week before 9/11 on a Tuesday, 7 o'clock flight
Wow,
back to California. So,
wow, oh my goodness.
yeah. Yeah, I still kind of,
Yeah, it gives you chills. It's hard to think about, so it's hard. That's why I never actually visited it. I was just like, I know it's there, but it's hard for me.
yeah. And then sometimes it's kind of interesting. Like my kids were making a joke about 9/11 or something the other day, and I was like, no, no, like we don't joke about that.
It's weird. I
Um,
don't teaches kids about 9/11 because my daughter was playing this art game and she needed a picture for an explosion. And I was watching her and I was like, is that a twin tower? And I was like, oh no, we're not gonna use that picture. And she thought she was in trouble. I was like, you don't know about this, but this was a serious attack on us, and this is
yeah,
what it is. It's an actual picture of that. And I explained to her what happened, and it's like, I don't think anyone talks about it anymore or teaches kids about what
yeah.
that was. I knew that
We
picture. She
Right.
did
We
not.
watch the documentary like every year on 9/11, so our kids like always remember it, but it's still they're teenagers who weren't alive when it happened.
Yeah, I was young when it happened. I was in fifth grade, but I was, and you know, I watched it on the news. I remember my teacher wheeling the TV,
Wheeling the
and
TV in, yeah.
we were watching, and we're like, "What's going on?" And then we were being told what was happening, and then we were all crying. And but my kids are only 7 and 9, so I haven't thought about talking about it with them. But now I
Hmm.
should, but I don't want to make them really like traumatized or scared because they have wild imaginations and they start going off on tangents.
Maybe find a
but
good documentary or something.
but I explained it to my oldest daughter pretty well, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I won't use that picture ever again." I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time. So, I want to ask you my favorite question for all my guests, and that is what does keep growing mean to you?
Keep growing means to
Yeah.
me. Um, to me, it means don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to your own insecurities or your own vulnerabilities. Just learn how to cultivate yourself from those and grow larger. And um, just don't ever stop believing in yourself. You can always reach for the sun, just like all the plants do. If that's what thinking about plants, whenever I think about keep growing, just keep reaching for the sun. Don't limit yourself. Learn from your mistakes and just keep evolving from there.
I love it. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and find your products and
And find me on my page, Mountain Girl Makes It, on Instagram and Facebook and Etsy. You can reach me in all those three places. All my products can be found on Etsy. My patterns are also sold on Etsy. I haven't started selling on any other social media pages except Etsy. So that's the only official place right now. A reason why I
oh,
say those scam pages. So always find me on Etsy if you want to purchase something from me, please.
okay. And I'll make sure I link that.
Yes, you can always follow what I'm doing on my homestead with my family on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I really enjoyed this conversation and learning all about the fiber arts.
For having me.
Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!